Namaste, Namaskaram, Vanakkam, Namo Namaha. Continuing with our fear trilogy. And again, you can pause the video and study these collages that are beautifully done by AI. So we began with a preface to the fear trilogy, and we did number 1, which was fear in costume. And now we're on to number 2. Fear has an ear. Fear is often spoken of as though it were a weakness. We are told to overcome fear, conquer fear, destroy fear, and become fearless. But that seems far too simple, because fear is not one thing. Fear can be instinct. That's the first level, isn't it? Reaction. Graves' 7 levels of human aspiration. Fear can be memory. Fear can be wisdom. Fear can be an illusion, like the classic rope and the snake, which is an interesting one because it reminds us to take life seriously, but not too seriously. Because we add on to that classic story, which initially begins with 2 people walking on a forest path at twilight, so the light's not too bright, and they see a snake in front of them. One runs away. The other approaches cautiously and realizes, it was only a rope. So it was an illusion. So the one person took life too seriously and ran away. Now the other kept walking down the path, saw another piece of rope, went up to it, kicked it, it bit him, and he died. So the other person didn't take life seriously enough. So fear, yes, can be an illusion. And it can also be a bondage. It can be protection. Now, interestingly, within the English word fear is the word ear. This can give us a useful teaching. Fear is not something to fight. Fear is something to hear. To hear fear does not mean to obey fear blindly. It means to listen carefully. Natural fear may be saying, pay attention. Could be saying something is unsafe. Could be saying you have been hurt before. Could also be saying you are imagining danger where there is none. So, of course, sometimes fear is warning us. But sometimes fear is controlling us. Sometimes fear is calling us to courage. And the mature response is not, I must fear fear itself. The mature response is, I must listen to fear without becoming its slave. This makes the famous statement, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, powerful as rhetoric, but immature if taken as a complete philosophy. If it means that we should fear only panic, paralysis, and unreasoning terror, then there is wisdom in it. But if it means that fear itself is always the enemy, then it fails to understand the complexity of life. Let's look, for example, at a deer running from a human. Now, that's not really immature. It might be wise. A child fearing fire after being burned is not immature. A community fearing the loss of dharma may not be immature. But a person fearing truth, responsibility, transformation, or ego refinement may indeed be immature. So fear itself is not the problem. Unexamined fear is the problem. False fear is the problem. Fear that paralyzes action. Fear in animals and humans. When we look at the primates, humans and other animals, we see that fear is complex. Some fear is instinctive. Some fear is learned. Some fear is socially transmitted. Some fear develops through experience and memory. A newborn human, lion cub, tiger cub, or young animal may appear fearless. A person may play with a lion cub or tiger cub and think, look, a baby has no fear. But this does not necessarily mean the cub is fearless or mature. It may simply not yet understand danger. Its nervous system, memory, and world recognition are still developing. This is innocence, not necessarily wisdom. A child walking toward danger because he or she does not understand it is not courageous. A tiger cub that does not yet recognize the danger of a human being is not enlightened. It is simply young. The movement of life often goes like this: innocence, fear, then discernment, then courage, then wisdom. Innocence, fear, discernment, courage, wisdom. The goal is not to return to childish ignorance. The goal is to move forward into mature clarity. Now again, if we look at a deer, for example, it will run away from a human. Whereas ants and mosquitoes may walk on us, land on us, bite us, or move across our skin with no apparent fear at all. At first, this might look like a strange contradiction. The deer seems more evolved, more alert, more sensitive, yet it runs away. The ant or mosquito seems much simpler, yet it comes right toward us. Does this mean that the mosquito is fearless and the deer is immature? No. The opposite might be closer to the truth. The deer's fear is not immaturity, and the mosquito's fearlessness is not maturity. The deer survives through distance, sensitivity, hearing, smell, sight, speed, and early detection. Its body is built around alertness. To run from a human may be intelligent deer wisdom. It perceives danger and responds appropriately. The mosquito, on the other hand, survives differently. It is drawn by heat, carbon dioxide, scent, moisture, and blood. It lands on the human not because it is courageous, but because it's hungry. Its biological program drives it towards its food source. Its apparent boldness may actually be a narrowness of awareness. The ant walking across your hand is not a sage. The mosquito landing on your arm is not a warrior. They may not perceive the human being as danger in the same way that the deer does. Their apparent fearlessness may simply be a very limited perception. So, we must distinguish between different forms of fear and also fearlessness. Primitive fearlessness means I do not perceive the danger. Reactive fear means I perceive the danger and panic. Intelligent fear means I perceive danger and respond appropriately. Mature fearlessness means I perceive danger clearly, but I am not ruled by panic. Now, some people seem fearless because they are wise. Others seem fearless because they are unaware, reckless, intoxicated, narcissistic, inexperienced, or just flat out foolish. The same outward behavior may have very different inner meanings. The real question is not simply, does this being feel fear? The deeper question is, does this being perceive accurately and respond in a way that preserves life? Now, let's examine this arrogant form of fearlessness, so-called. We have all seen the brash adolescent who wants to appear dangerous, untouchable, powerful. Perhaps there's a bumper sticker on the car saying, "Fear this," or perhaps it says, "Fear less." Now, these phrases can be harmless slogans in some context, but in the context of arrogance and ego display, they reveal something very immature. Fear this is not true fearlessness, it's a demand. See me as powerful. See me as dangerous. See me as someone you should react to. That's not courage. That's the ego seeking impact. Fearless may be wise when it means do not be ruled by unnecessary anxiety and fears. But in an immature context, it can become ignore danger, prove yourself, do not listen, do not be weak, do not think. That is not mature fearlessness. It is bravado wearing the clothing of courage. There's a great difference between saying, "I have mastered fear," and saying, "I have not yet understood its consequences." Youth often confuse the two. The immature mind thinks fearlessness means I don't care, I can do anything. No one can stop me. Fear me. But mature fearlessness says, I see danger clearly. I do not need to impress anybody. I will not be ruled by panic. I know when to stand and when to step back. This is the difference between ego display and real courage. Immature fearlessness wants to be feared. Mature fearlessness has no need to frighten anyone. The one who says fear this is still trapped in fear because he or she needs fear as their mirror. They need others to be afraid in order to feel strong. True fearlessness does not need to advertise itself at all. This is why the reckless fearlessness can be very dangerous. Fear may at least warn us, but false fearlessness silences the warning. It shuts the ear. It says, I don't need to listen. And when fear loses its ear, courage becomes stupidity. In the Sanskrit Hindu language, the word for fear is bhyaya. Fearlessness is abhyaya. Bhyaya means danger, dread, alarm. Abhyaya means fearlessness, non-fear, safety, reassurance, and protection. The prefix a or a negates the word. So, abhyaya literally means no fear or absence of fear. But in Hindu Dharma especially, in the sacred symbolism, abhyaya means more than emotional fearlessness. When a deva or devi raises the hand in abhyaya mudra, the gesture says, do not fear, you are protected. Be at peace, stand steady, all is well. When you stand in dharma. Ever hear the cliche, everything's good or everything's okay? Well, it's everything's good and everything's okay until it isn't. Abhyaya is not a reckless statement in this case. It is divine reassurance. Do not be ruled by fear, but stand in truth. Take refuge in dharma. Often abhyaya is placed with varada mudra, the gesture of blessing, boon giving, grace, and divine generosity. Together, these two gestures form a profound teaching. Abhyaya says, do not fear. Varada says, receive the blessing. Everything's okay. But the deeper dharmic reading is not cheap reassurance. It's not everything's okay no matter what you do. Rather, everything's okay, abhyaya, if you do the right thing, varada. Or, do not fear, stand in dharma. Grace will come. This is why it's very different from immature fearlessness. Abhyaya does not say be reckless, and Varada does not say you will be rewarding your ego. Abhyaya and Varada stand together, teaching courage through right action. The wisdom of Abhyaya and Ganesha and his great elephant ears. This teaching now becomes even richer when viewed through the Hindu lens of Mahaganapati, Ganesha, our first primal deity that all Hindus beseech. And we know why. Grounding, earthiness, foundation, memory, first chakra, primal sound, Om. And his form is full of symbolism, profound symbolism, to take into one's life. That's what we mean when we say being established in Ganesha consciousness. For example, look at his large ears. They remind us that wisdom begins by listening. Suniye, listen up. Gajaganikaya. So in this sense, fear has an ear. Therefore, fear is not something that we fight, but something to listen to. Ganesha does not teach us panic. He's the opposite of that. Steadiness, groundedness. Nor does he teach recklessness. Of course not. He teaches attentive discernment. Listen carefully. Sift, if you will, winnow. Sift wisely. Hear what is true. One of Ganapati's names is Surpakarana. He whose ears are like winnowing baskets. That's a profound symbol. A winnowing basket separates the grain from the chaff. In the same way, the discerning mind separates true fear from false fear, real warning from imagined danger. Ganapati's great ears therefore teach us how to approach fear itself. Some fear is true warning. Some fear is false agitation. Some fear protects life. Some fear blinds the mind. To listen well is to distinguish between them. This is why Ganesha's relation to Abhyaya and Varada is so meaningful. Abhyaya says, do not fear. It is reassurance, protection, and the calming of panic. Sharanam Ganesha. Varada says, receive the boon, the blessing, the fruit. Together, they form a complete teaching. Do not be ruled by fear, because you're acting rightly. Then the grace comes. Now, sometimes in Ganesha's case, Varada is sometimes expressed not only through the opening and the giving hand, but through the laddu or the modaka that he holds. The symbolism here is beautiful. Life becomes sweet when one listens properly, acts properly, and stands in dharma. Abhyaya says everything is okay, do not fear. Varada, especially with the sweet in hand, says life will be sweet if you do the right thing. Another nice symbolism of Ganesha's Vilambita Sutra, his trunk, which reminds us to incorporate three things that the elephant's trunk can do. It's extremely strong, extremely flexible, and the tip can pick up a coin. It's sensitive. So symbolically, Ganesha is telling us that if in life, in all your bodies, physical, mental, emotional, and atma, if you are strong, flexible, and sensitive, life will be sweet. Just look at the opposite. If we're weak, inflexible, insensitive, rather than life being sweet for ourselves or those around us, it will be quite sour. So Ganesha embodies this wisdom of listening deeply, discerning clearly. Don't panic. Receive the sweetness rightly from a lived life of ethics, devotion, meditation, contemplation, a dharmic life. His big ears again remind us to listen, listen, listen to the wisdom that comes from outside of us and inside of us. Topu karanam. Those from Tamilan understand this is the body learning to listen. This is a Hindu gesture, often performed before Ganapati in the mandirs, especially in the South Indian context, where the devotee crosses the arms, holds the opposite earlobes, and bends or squats repeatedly. This practice is commonly called topu karanam. Outwardly, it may look like a simple act of discipline, correction, or even a childish punishment, but inwardly it can be read as a profound gesture. Before Ganesha, who is considered the remover of obstacles, the devotee takes hold of the ears. And this is not an accidental symbolism. The ears are the organs of listening. To hold the ears is to admit, I must listen. I do not hear correctly. I must become teachable. The crossed arms humble the ego. The bending body softens pride. The repeated rising and lowering teaches correction through the whole body. So, the devotee is not merely saying, I will listen. The devotee performs listening. The body then becomes a prayer of listening. In this way, Topu Karanam belongs naturally beside Ganapati's great ears. Listen deeply. Sift truth from noise. And holding of the ears reminds us to stop resisting wisdom. This also connects directly to fear, obviously, because fear truly has an ear if we listen. But immature people don't want to listen. The brash youth says, fear this. The reckless person says, fear less. I am fearless. But the wise devotee standing before Ganapati holds the ears, bows the body, and listens and learns, discerns rightly, acts humbly. Topu Karanam may therefore be understood as a physical teaching in humility, correction, and receptive intelligence. Actually, this is the meaning of true Hatha Yoga, the Hindu devotional postures. They become distorted into just a outward physical routine today, but they're all devotional postures to nature, to the Atmana, to the Hindu spiritual beings, teaching us the wisdom of Atmadarshana, Paramodharma. Now, the opposite to all of this is narcissistic fearlessness. Fearlessness that comes from the maturity of living. In this case, the Hindu yoga, religious, spiritual, scientific, philosophical lifestyle. It doesn't need others to fear them. It doesn't demand that others tremble in their presence. It asks the ego to become quiet enough to hear. That's the primal lesson. Sat Bhaya and Asat Bhaya. This can give us a useful distinction between Sat and Asat. Sat means truth, reality, being, what is real. Asat means untruth, unreality, non-being, what is false or distorted. This goes back to Brihad Aranyaku Upanishad thousands of years ago. Therefore, we could also speak of Sat Bhaya, true fear, and Asat Bhaya, a false fear. Sat Abhya, true fearlessness. Asat Bhaya, false fearlessness. Sat Baya is true fear. It's rightful caution. It's intelligent alertness. It's the deer running from danger. It's the child learning not to touch the fire. It is the community recognizing a threat, fellow Hindus. It's the practitioner recognizing the danger of the ego, of delusion, of addiction, or adharma. Satbhaya is not cowardice. It is reverence before reality. Asatbhaya is false fear. It's imagined danger, perhaps inherited prejudice, irrational panic, phobia, protection, superstition, or ego fear. It's actually the fear of truth, the fear of growth, the fear of responsibility, the fear of losing social approval, the fear of losing false identity. This is highly relevant today when you confront the massive spurious yoga movement. Asat-bhaya binds the mind to illusion. Sat-abhaya, abhaya is true fearlessness. It is courage joined with discernment. It sees danger clearly but does not collapse. It doesn't need to frighten others. It doesn't advertise itself. It stands quietly in dharma. Sat abhyaya is symbolic of Hanuman crossing the ocean. It is Durga facing the Asura, Mahishasura. It is Shiva seated in stillness. It is Krishna guiding Arjuna toward action, not through recklessness, but through wisdom. Asat abhyaya is false fearlessness. It's the mosquito landing on danger without even perceiving it. It's the reckless youth demanding to be feared. It is intoxicated confidence. It is narcissistic bravado. It is ignorance pretending to be courage. Asat abhyaya is not freedom from fear. It's unconsciousness of danger. So this fear must be purified through vivek, discernment. Without vivek, fear becomes panic. Without courage, caution becomes paralysis. Without fear, courage can become stupidity. Without humility, fearlessness becomes ego display. But with vivek, fear becomes information. Caution becomes intelligence. Courage becomes dharma. A mouse fleeing a cat is not spiritually immature. A deer fleeing a hunter is not cowardly. A person refusing truth because the ego trembles may be immature. A teenager demanding that others fear this may be trapped in the very fear one claims to have conquered. So the task is not to destroy fear, the task is to listen, to understand fear. It has to be heard. False fear has to be corrected. True fear has to be respected. False fearlessness needs to be humbled. True fearlessness asks to be lived. So perhaps the teaching is not fear nothing, nor is it fear itself. The deeper teaching is hear fear, listen, discern, purify. Discern then whether fear is warning you, controlling you, or calling you to courage. Now, again, fear is not always false or to be avoided, and fearlessness is not always true. There's true fear and false fear. There's true fearlessness and a false fearlessness. There is the fear that protects life, and there is the fear that imprisons one. There is the fearlessness of the sage, and there is the fearlessness of the fool. Again, the deer's fear may be wisdom, whereas the mosquito's fearlessness may be ignorance. The child's fearlessness may be innocence, while the adolescent's fear this may be narcissism. The deva's abhyaya is protection. The sage's fearlessness is clarity. Ganesha's great ears are the wisdom to listen. Ganesha's laddu is the sweetness of right action. Topu karanam is the body learning to listen. Therefore, fear is the ego. Fear less may be therapy. Fear wisely is dharma. The highest state is not the absence of fear. The highest state is fear purified by truth, courage, guided by discernment, and rooted in dharma. This is abhyaya with vivek. Not reckless fearlessness, not panic, not denial, not bravado, but the calm hand of the divine raised before us, saying, Abhyaya, do not fear, stand in dharma, and of course do the right thing. And the great ears of Ganapati reminding us, listen deeply, discern rightly, then life becomes sweet. Thus ends the second part of our Fear Trilogy. Stay tuned for the prescription, the ultimate understanding of what fear cannot touch.